we have the one and only Laith Marouf. He is the man of the hour and the person that yesterday I was like, okay, I'm confused. I need to talk to him. Laith Marouf is an award-winning multimedia producer and broadcast law consultant. You can follow Laith on Twitter at Laith Marouf. At Laith Marouf, and his website at cmacenter.org. Laith, I have been
actually one note there. The Laith Marouf Twitter account has been nuked at the orders of the Congress, so it doesn't exist right now.
How can people find you? I'm sorry. How can people find you, by the way?
You can find me at TV Free Palestine.
Okay.
And the website is freepalestine.video.
Freepalestine.video. I will put that in. Man, I am so appreciative that you could join me today. There is a report that's coming out that's saying that Lebanon is on the brink of a deal with Israel to end the war, the exchange that's taking place between the two. I don't fully understand this. And the reason why I don't understand it is because it's not Lebanon that's fighting Israel. The Lebanese military hasn't fired a shot in anger at all, despite the fact that Israel has been murdering women and children, not to mention people in general, in mass. And so when I hear, it's like, okay, who is making this deal? Is this Lebanon making this deal? Is Hezbollah making the deal? And if it's Lebanon making the deal, how does that relate to Hezbollah, since Hezbollah is the one that's doing the fighting? Could you go into this for me? Who is, okay, let me start at the beginning. Who is negotiating? Is this the Lebanese government negotiating with Israel, with Hashtin, basically an IDF soldier with dual citizenship in the United States? Is it that negotiation that's taking place, basically the Lebanese government with the Israeli government?
Yes, so there is the Hochstein that you mentioned is the American special envoy. As you mentioned, also he is a former Israeli officer, and the negotiation is not direct because Lebanon doesn't acknowledge the existence of the Zionist colony as a state. Yep. So the negotiation is between the caretaker government and actually and through them is the Speaker of the House, the Parliament in Lebanon, Nabih Berri, the head of the Amal party, the other Shia party here in Lebanon, and he has the authorization to negotiate on behalf of Hezbollah. So really it's a negotiation between Nabih Berri and Hochstein. The offer that's coming from Hochstein and the Israelis is a reoccupation offer. The Hochstein is offering that the British, the French, and the Germans would occupy South Lebanon.
Right.
And of course, this is something that Hezbollah will not agree to.
Wait, real quick, just to add on to that, it's even worse than that, because Israel wants America to back them on any notion of going in. Meaning, if Israel finds the need to go in to attack southern Lebanon, that they can do so with the expressed help of the Americans in doing so.
Oh yes, and they want to have the right to bomb any part of Lebanon, assassinate anybody on Lebanese territory, and the Lebanese resistance and or army wouldn't have the right to retaliate. So it's a non-starter. And when we hear all this media talk about, oh, we're close to a ceasefire deal, this is all for the internal consumption within the Zionist colony and the West in general. Here in Lebanon, everybody knows there's no way that Hezbollah will agree to such a kind of offer, especially after, we're now up to 4,000 Lebanese civilians killed, and much of the leadership of Hezbollah assassinated. with also the terrorist pager attack injuring thousands of people. So there's no way Hezbollah is going to accept that now. He would have accepted something like this if it was in a weak position. It is not, and it's not going to give away all these martyrs now. You could imagine if Hezbollah agreed to this right now, that its own supporters will rebel against it because it had,
it amounts to surrender.
Yeah.
On the other front, good. Thank you for that, because I was deeply confused as I was reading through that, because it seems that what the objective is, if they take that deal, which I call a surrender deal, but if they take that deal, it also isolates the resistance that's taking place in Gaza, which contradicts the entire reason that Hezbollah has been doing the missile attacks in the first place. I mean, the entire premise behind the attacks that Hezbollah was launching in Israel was stop murdering and slaughtering Gazans. And recently you have Seymour Hersh coming out with his article saying that they want to annex the West Bank. I think that's pretty clear at this point. I think that's almost obvious at this point. And so it kind of defeats the purpose of what Hezbollah was doing if indeed they end up accepting a deal like this. So yeah, I didn't think that they would allow the complete isolation of Gaza in order to sign a deal in this sense. Okay, fair enough. There were several attacks that were taking place yesterday. Could you go into it? I mean, Israel has been bombing Beirut almost to blackmail Beirut to get them to sign on to that deal. And up to this point, they've resisted and have said no. And they've been doing tit for tat, where they were able to hit Israel with 300 missiles or drones yesterday. What happened yesterday in regards to the large scale Hezbollah attack and stopping and pushing back Israel in southern Lebanon in and of itself?
Yes, so the two parts to that question. The first is the waves of missiles that we saw over the last 24 hours, the largest wave of missiles since the beginning of this war fired by Hezbollah. It included medium range, long range, and ballistic missiles, as well as waves of drones that bombarded all the coastal area between the border of Lebanon and the border of Gaza. So Hezbollah hit the major air base just in Ashdod, just 20 kilometers north of the Gaza border, and everything north of that all the way to Naharia. Upwards of 4.5 million Israelis were rushing to the bunkers hour after hour, because this came in waves throughout the day. And this was in response to the Zionists attacking Beirut proper, the city municipality area, 3 times within 24 hours. And those attacks being purposefully close to the parliament of Lebanon and or the security block around the home of Nabih Berri, the head of the Amal party that's negotiating on behalf of Hezbollah. So the last attack that the Israelis conducted on an area called Basta, is a very working class area in the heart of Beirut, was the 3rd largest attack in terms of destructive power that the Israelis conducted. The first 2 being the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, then the Deputy Secretary General assassination of Safiuddin. This last attack was using 6 GBUs, each one of them being 2 tons, and it came at 4 o'clock in the morning in the middle of all families sleeping and so on. Our apartment here was shaking when that attack happened. So it was, the only purpose of all of these attacks was to terrorize the population and to pressure the government to surrender, basically. And what we saw is Hezbollah responding with this massive wave of attacks, hitting so many of the bases between here and Gaza, and raining the major cities with missiles hitting residential areas, and so forth. And so now we have, on that front, it's clear that Hezbollah has the upper hand and or can deliver the same amount of damage that the Israelis are trying to deliver against the civilians.
Yeah.
On the issue of the battles on the front lines in South Lebanon, yesterday, it's been now 4 days that the Israelis on the coastline around the Naqoura area attempted to bypass the frontline villages that for 60 somewhat days they haven't been able to enter. They've been fighting and having to retreat. So they tried to bypass those frontline villages and kind of do a maneuver surrounding them by capturing the hills on top of those villages and to capture the second line villages. And what happened is that actually Hezbollah created a trap and allowed the Israeli military to enter, and then in a span of 45 minutes, destroyed 7 Merkava tanks.
Right.
And this is on one area. On the other side of the border, all the way close to the Golan Heights, there's a huge battle in the Khiam village, which now has been ongoing for 7 days.
Wow.
The Israeli military is getting pounded from the air by waves of drones and missiles, and the fighters keep on appearing from behind them, behind the invading forces. And again, they did a trap for the Israeli military where they made them feel that the Hezbollah withdrew, and once they stationed a new post, basically, of the command and control the Israelis, they hit that, and now we know that that command center is destroyed, and with it, all the Israeli soldiers there. So the Israelis are, since the beginning of the attempted invasion 60 days ago, have already lost 67 tanks.
Yeah.
So more than a tank a day they're losing on the front line, and that's unprecedented for them.
Yeah, this is worse than 2006, I believe, or 2008. I forget the exact year that they were pushed back last time. I don't think you were here when Netanyahu and Gallant were put under the ICC arrest warrant, where the arrest warrant was issued for Gallant and Netanyahu. I want to get your take on Netanyahu's response to this. I swear he's one of the most slimy, mendacious people that I think I've come across. I hate listening to him talk, but for the sake of the audience and for just honest reflection, I'll give us what he's saying here. Let me get your take on this statement. This is Netanyahu after the arrest warrant was issued for him by the ICC.
The anti-Semitic decision of the International Court in The Hague is a modern Dreyfus trial, and it will end the same way. 130 years ago, a French Jewish officer, Alfred Dreyfus, was falsely accused of treason by a biased French court. In response to these false accusations, the great French writer Émile Zola wrote his monumental essay, J'accuse. He accused the French court of anti-Semitic lies against an innocent officer who was later exonerated of all guilt. Now an international court in The Hague, also headed by a French judge, is repeating this outrageous offense. It is falsely accusing me, a democratically elected prime minister of the State of Israel, and Israel's former defense minister, Yoav Gallant, of deliberately targeting civilians. This when we do everything in our power to avoid civilian casualties. We issue millions of text messages, phone calls, leaflets to the citizens of Gaza to get them out of harm's way, while the Hamas terrorists do everything in their power to keep them in harm's way, including shooting them, using them as human shields. The court in The Hague accuses us of a deliberate policy of starvation. This when we've supplied Gaza with 700,000 tons of food to feed the people of Gaza. That's 3,200 calories for every man, woman, and child in Gaza. And these supplies are routinely looted by Hamas terrorists who deprive their people of much needed food. Yet just in the last few weeks,
Yeah,
he's
you're
going to
muted
polio
still.
and yeah, he's going to say polio and all of this other stuff. Give me your take on that. God, man, it's so. I can play you videos where they have thrown people off rooftops, where they've shot children, where doctors that were on the ground talked about how the drones were just killing people indiscriminately, where people were going to get flour and they were being shot at as they were getting flour. I mean, just outrageous stuff. I'm sorry. I hate. Give me your take on.
Yeah, I mean, number one, obviously, according to the Zionists, the whole world is anti-Semitic.
Right.
You know, according to Zionist, math and numbers are anti-Semitic. Your eyes and your ears are anti-Semitic. You know, if you don't say what they want you to say. So of course, this word has lost its meaning right now. You know, one of my cats is here. I totally forgot her in the room.
You're fine.
So I'm just gonna try to kick her out of the room. Hold on a second.
Oh, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. Listen, that cat was being anti-Semitic. No, man, I can show you video after video of them blowing stuff up, killing people, all of that stuff. It's astonishing.
Usually it's the other cat that likes to hide whenever I have an interview, but this time I didn't notice this one. Yeah, and that cat was anti-Semitic because it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That cat is anti-Semitic. He's complaining when Netanyahu is speaking. He's obviously, hates Jews.
Yes.
Give me a take in two fronts on this. One, the ICC and the significance of them putting the arrest warrant, and two, Netanyahu's response to the ICC's arrest warrant.
Yeah, so first off, obviously the ICC is trying to save itself. You know, if it didn't issue these arrest warrants, then it will cease to have any relevance as a court. Remember, international law is de facto, not de jure. Laws that are inside states are de jure, meaning you can adjudicate them in a court and the judge rules on it and then it comes into effect. But international law is de facto, meaning how many states willingly abide by it, and or do you have the power to enforce it and bring it into fact by force? So as we've been seeing over the last 14 months, the whole collective West and the empire ruled from DC have rejected international law. Okay, that body of international law that was written after World War II, they have been refusing its application on the Zionist colony. Therefore, in fact, de facto, there is no international law currently. Okay, and the other part of it is that there is all these bodies international organizations that were created after World War II to govern that body of law. The United Nations, International Criminal Court, ICJ, blah, blah, blah. And all of those organizations have been also failing to implement international law. And therefore, those organizations themselves were beginning to collapse and their relevance was becoming questionable. And so this moment of limbo that we live, if the ICC didn't issue these warrants, it would have ceased to exist, in fact. Okay, so it's really to save itself, it issued these arrest warrants. Now comes the issue of implementation. Can you implement these arrest warrants? And as we saw, the United States is threatening to invade The Hague and the Netherlands if this arrest warrants are acted on. It's also threatening to sanction any of its allies that said that they will be respecting the decisions of the ICC. So again, we still don't have enforcement of the law. Therefore, we're still in this moment of limbo. Now, on the issue of Netanyahu and the Zionists in general, what Netanyahu is now actually doing is he is closing the ranks. Okay, before these arrest warrants were issued, there was some criticism to him within the Israeli military. There was people within the intelligence agencies that were in conflict with his positions. There was even people within the Congress, the Knesset and or the cabinet that were in conflict with his decisions. But now, given that there is an arrest warrant on the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense, that means everybody within the military hierarchy that followed the orders of the minister are also liable for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Similarly, anyone that was in the cabinet, anyone that is a ambassador, okay, anyone that's in the coalition of the government, in the parliament, they're all liable under international law. So anyone that had any criticism to Netanyahu is now lining up behind them. And there's a closing of the ranks of all Zionists, not only in the Israel, around the world. They're all right now taking one position, and it's actually these arrest warrants are going to make sure that there will be no peace treaty. There will be no ceasefire. We are now 100% going to a zero-sum game, and we will see that playing out on the field.
What does that mean on the field? Like, meaning, what does that look like in real terms? Is it just there is no peace deal? Israel continues with the bombing of civilians. Hezbollah continues with the response. Like, what does that mean? Do you see this coming to some kind of conclusion at some point at all? And what does that conclusion look like if it does?
Well, think about it this way. Netanyahu knows he's going to be charged with genocide. Well, he might as well genocide all of the Palestinians in Gaza. You see? Similarly, he knows he's going to be charged with war crimes for killing people here in Lebanon. Well, he might as well kill as many as he can. You see? So I think this is now going to worsen the situation. Not that I didn't want these, arrest warrants to be issued, but I'm just showing people how actually it's going to cement the path that we're on, which is a full confrontation in the region here, and giving those proclamations by members of the American Congress and those who have been nominated by Trump, which all are very, very strong, Zionist proclamations. I think yes, and they are, those who are Trump is picking are not even just regular Zionists, they're Armageddonists. Yeah. Okay, so we are for sure, if Netanyahu is not able to win this war by the time Trump comes into power, January 20th, which he is not going to win this war, then we should be expecting the United States to be involved directly in the open in fighting this war on behalf of the Zionist colony come January 20th.
So you think they're going to put U.S. troops on the ground?
Yes, there's already all the special forces of NATO are on the ground. Some of our viewers may remember when in the beginning of the genocide in Gaza and Biden arriving to Tel Aviv, and there was a picture of him with the Navy, SEALs. That was leaked, and the White House freaked out because even the faces of those soldiers were visible. Since then, the Canadian Special Task Force that was involved in all the massacres in Afghanistan has been on the ground in Gaza and on the border here with Lebanon. Similarly, the US, German, British Special Forces, they're all actually active. And on top of that, there's at least 50 to 60,000, if not more, mercenaries. Okay, this is not the regular American and Canadian Jewish citizens that decided to fight on the ground here. No, these are mercenaries that were on the front in Ukraine, or in other places that have been rounded up by the West and sent on the ground. The Israeli military is deteriorating fast. They have a 25% shortage in their numbers, and the number of up until now, like some of these soldiers, Israeli soldiers, have served 6 rounds, right? So they're exhausted. They can't keep up. They're going crazy. They're committing suicide. So in reality, the West is already fighting this war undeclared, but by January 20th, it's going to be declared. This is why the British ambassador to Israel just yesterday said that British citizens should be ready to die for Israel. He used those words. So this is coming, and people should be kind of aware of what's going to happen.
Look, I would tell you, the majority of Americans don't even want weapons to go to Israel. If Donald Trump goes with this idea of sending U.S. personnel in the open to Israel, all hell will break loose. It's hard to get across how the point of view of America public has changed on the issue of Israel. You do have some lunatics that are the elites. So if you go to Congress, these people are, out of their mind. Most of them have been paid to take that point of view. And most of them have been groomed by various Israelis to take that point of view in order to basically back the Jewish state. I mean, there was a concerted effort for Israel to use either dual citizenship or to get Jews that are in America to put pressure on the U.S. government. And PACs like AIPAC or some of these other lobbying groups that effectively function and represent Jewish interests, or let's say Israeli interests, these groups pay hundreds of millions of dollars to get these politicians to take a point of view. But their point of view is not the same point of view as the American public. The majority of the American public that has watched this genocide, that's watched this ethnic cleansing, can hear the statements that are coming out of Israel themselves on this. They have taken the point of view that Israel is either committing a genocide or at the very least has gone too far, and that they don't necessarily want the U.S. continuously arming them, which is why Joe Biden lost that race in many respects when the youth vote just didn't show up, or the Arab vote didn't show up. So there would be major upheaval. At least that's my assessment. I could be wrong.
You are right.
Yeah, I think there would be major upheaval here if he did that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the American people, British people, French people are as decent as the rest of humanity. There's no peoples that are evil by birth, okay? And we saw the surveys of the American public, 70% of them saying they want an arms embargo on Israel. This is very advanced position. This is not only like a position of supporting the Palestinians. This is, so all of humanity watched for 14 months an uninterrupted stream of Holocaust porn and genocide porn. And we're all inundated with it. There's no way anyone can deny what has been happening. And because most of humanity is decent, people don't agree to seeing children killed or a doctor being raped to death, as a punishment.
Disgusting. Yeah.
So yes, the problem is that the American elite and the Western elite in general have decided that they don't care about the opinion of their own populace. And I think 1 year of demonstrations solidified that within the minds of the elite in the US and the West, that the populace in their states are wimps. You can do whatever you want to. They'll go out and the street, demonstrate for a few hours and go back home and eat crap, okay? And do nothing. So if put yourself in the position of the Western elite, who cares if all of the populace are against me? They're all wimps. They're not going to do nothing. That's at least what's in their mind. But we are already seeing the beginnings of unrest and revolt within Western states. We saw what happened in Amsterdam a few weeks ago with that Maccabi Tel Aviv game. We saw what happened in Paris. And just 2 nights ago, we saw what happened in Montreal, Canada.
Yeah.
Okay, there was
Anti-war.
all the students, all the colleges and universities in Quebec are on strike. You know, there is in Canada, specifically in Quebec, there is student unions that are accredited, just like labor unions. This is something that's missing in the US.
Oh, okay.
But the students voted collectively and went on strike for Gaza. And then they went in, there was a NATO parliamentary meeting happening in Montreal, in the Palais de Congrès of Montreal. And the demonstrators destroyed the convention center and had clashes in the streets with the police. So these are all the kind of smoke signals of the coming confrontation between the populace in the West and their undemocratic, elected representatives. And I think things are going to be very nasty in the US, especially with Trump promising to, deport 20 million people.
Yeah.
Most people think he's going to target the Latinos with that. But believe me, I think the first target is going to be the Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims, and anyone who supports them.
Well, he said
we're going to have internment camps.
He said the first target is going to be basically free speech, that he is going to go after anybody that is advocating against genocide for all intents and purposes. So, yeah, I agree with you. All hell is going to break loose when Trump gets in. And if indeed that ends up being his policy, all hell is going to break loose here. Laith, man, thank you for this. I was, when I was reading through the article, I was like, there is no way that this is going to work out the way that the article is trying to say that it's going to work out. It didn't entirely make sense to me. Thank you for this. I really appreciate your explanation. It is deeply helpful. I really do appreciate it. Laith Marouf, he's an award-winning multimedia producer and broadcaster, law consultant, and you can find him on freepalestine.video. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I get that right.
Yes, that's the website.
Excellent. Laith, thank you for this, man.